Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to talk about all the books that I got to read in the month of January. And some of these books were physical books, some of them were ebooks, and I'm going to talk about each one of them in the order I read them. So let's begin. The first book I read this year is Murder at Mount Fuji by Shizuko Natsuki. It's a murder mystery, as the title suggests, and it's about a young woman named Jane, and she goes over to stay at her friend's villa with her friend's family. Her friend name is Chio, and what happens is that one evening they're sitting in the drawing room, and suddenly Chio barges in the room and tells everyone that she's murdered her grandfather. And of course, Chio's family love her so much, they decided to set out fake clues, so it feels like as if someone from the outside has committed the murder. But when the police investigate, they quickly realize that it's just a setup and it's all fake. So Chio is obviously arrested. But Jane, our main character, is obviously suspicious because how police got that very quick, that everything was a setup. I did really enjoy this book. It kind of reminded me of Agatha Christie novels because of the whole group of characters living in a villa and that they're isolated, and of course, one of the characters end up being murdered. So I did really enjoyed it, but I have to admit that our main character Jane felt a lot distant, and sometimes I felt like that she wasn't present at all in the narrative. And then I came to know an interesting fact about this book is that Jane was added after the book was translated into English. She wasn't there in the original Japanese text, so that is why she felt as if she wasn't really there in the story, and it felt like as if she was suddenly remembered in the end because most of the time she was absent. But other than that, I did enjoy the book, and I would say you should give it a try as well. The next book I read was The Improbable Tales of Baskerville Hall by Ellie Standish. And this is a middle grade book, and I loved this book to bits. So, to give you a general summary, it's about Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, the author of Sherlock Holmes novels and many more. So, he is shown to be a young boy, and he goes to this elite boarding school, and he solves mysteries over there with his friends Jim Moriarty and Irene Eagle. What I really loved about this book that of course I've been wanting to read a boarding school mystery novel for a while, and this really scratched that itch, I would say. And of course, is there the characters from Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's canon books like Sherlock Holmes, Dr. Watson, Mrs. Hudson, and of course Jim Moriarty, Irene Eagle, and some other characters from his other works which I am not aware about. They were all present in the book. Uh, Moriarty and Irene were his best friends. The other characters were all professors at this boarding school. So it was fun, it was adventurous, I enjoyed it. The next on this list is The Shadow of the Wind by Carlos Ruzafon, and I've made a whole reading blog about it. So if you're interested to know my complete thoughts about it, you can go and check out that video. I'll leave the link in the description. But about this book, I really loved it, as I mentioned in that video as well. And one thing that I noticed in the book is that the book doesn't really fall into the fantasy or magical realism genre as I initially thought, but it actually is just a historical fiction novel with the mystery in it. And I didn't knew that because initially I thought it's just fantasy, it has fantasy elements, but that's not the case. And still the book felt so magical to read. Then moving on to the next one, we have Miss Ice Sandwich by Miyoko Kawakami, and this book is something. I don't really know what to think about this book. Not that it was bad or anything, it's just that I don't really know what to think about it. This book is about a young boy, and he goes to the supermarket every day to buy a sandwich from a woman uh, who he has dubbed as Miss Ice Sandwich because she has really large eyes and she puts on this blue ice colored eyeshadow that he really likes. He really likes her eyes and even her hair. He just really finds her face to be interesting, and he just likes to look at her. And what he does is he goes to that supermarket every day to buy a sandwich from her so he can look at her for a little while. I did realize that the main point of this book is that you should, uh, I don't know, talk to the people you want to before they go away from your life, or you should avail your chances while you have. That's the only theme I can get. I guess there were some others like you shouldn't assume a lot of things about people because a lot of the characters in the book talked really badly about Miss Ice Sandwich, making really bad assumptions about her, but it turned out to be all false. So maybe that's the one of the themes about this book, but I didn't really got out anything other than that. Actually, you know what? Let me know what you think about this book, and if you have interpreted this differently than I did, then I would like to know because I'm a bit confused about this. Then we have Galatea, which is a short story by Madeline Miller. And this story is a retelling of the myth of Pygmalion and Galatea. For those who are not aware with the myth, it's about a sculptor who makes this ivory statue of a beautiful woman, and he falls in love with that statue. And what happens is that the Greek goddess of love, her name is Aphrodite, she turns that statue into a human, and then they get married, and this is where the original myth ends. But in this book, we get Galatea's point of view, and we see from her point of view that Pygmalion is a cruel husband. He is kind of weird as well. He doesn't really like that Galatea can talk and think like a normal human being. The prose of this book was beautiful. I loved it. I only have one small critique related to this story is that Madeline Miller used this one word that really irked me. It didn't took me out of the story, nor did it destroy the book for me, but it just really irked me. And I'm talking about the fact that she used the F word multiple times, and it just wasn't fitting into the narrative, into the prose that well. So it kind of irked me, but other than that, I loved the book. Moving on, we have The Legend of Sleepy Hollow by Washington Irving. This is a short story, and it's about a man called Ichabod Crane who comes to the town of Sleepy Hollow, and he loves to listen to ghost stories. And one of the most popular ones that he has heard is about a headless horseman who comes back to life every night in the pursuit of his head. And Ichabod doesn't really believe in all of these tales, but one night as he was going back home, he saw that same headless figure on a horse, and he is never seen after that, as in Ichabod is never seen after that. My initial thoughts when I just finished reading this book was that it's not as creepy as I thought it would be. Don't get me wrong, I did thought that the last part of the story was quite creepy, but other than that, the whole story was quite tame. Maybe because I've watched the Tim Burton film by the same name, Sleepy Hollow, and that film is extremely disturbing and grotesque and absurd in classic Tim Burton fashion, and it isn't surprising that after watching the film, I thought that the book was going to be similar as well. But I did enjoy the book, and the book is perfect to be read on a long winter night. So do read this book, it's great. Second to last book on this list is Charles and Diana, A Royal Love Story by Harry Arnold. This is a biography, a nonfiction book, which chronicles the time when they met each other, what kind of people they were before they can meet, and the story leads up to their engagement. It doesn't chronicle their marriage or whatever happened after that. While I was reading this book, I couldn't help but think to myself that how hopeful their beginning was. And I kept on thinking that they're such a great couple, but then I remembered that you cannot really change history. It was kind of sad, even though this book is really hopeful, it was sad because you know what will happen later on. And finally, I finished reading Stoner by John Williams. I'm so happy that I finally finished reading this book. I've been reading this for 2 weeks, and not because this book is difficult or anything. I was really busy. I'm not going to share my full thoughts about this book because I actually made a whole video on this book, but it's still in its editing phase, so I haven't uploaded it yet, but hoping to do that soon after this video. So yeah, thank you so much for watching this video. Thank you so much for listening to my rant about all these books, and I hope you also had a great reading month.